and 12 p.m. I'm going to reconvene. With a reminder to all those participating to kindly mute your microphones to avoid background noise. This meeting is being held virtually via WebEx and is being recorded. The recording will be available on the district website. I'm going to call the roll this evening. Board members, please unmute yourself and identify that you're here. Maria Madonic. Present. Sarah Beth Delpreet.
Present.
Jay Daya. Jay, do we have you back?
I'm not seeing him, Lynn.
I don't see him either. Thank you. He might be having trouble connecting. I had a little bit of difficulty getting back in. Brooke.
Present.
Jeff Hughes.
Present.
David Ross.
Present.
Mike Strambler.
Here.
Aaron Williamson.
Here.
And I'm Lynn Piasek, the chair. Staff in attendance this evening include Dr. Jonathan Budd, superintendent, Mr. Richard Hewitt, interim director of business and operations, Ms. Cheryl Kiesel, director of special services, Ms. Annalisa Sherman, principal, Mr. James Sapia, assistant principal, and Ms. Marcia DeGennaro, clerk of the board. Did we get Jay yet? All right, we'll watch for Jay.
I just texted him.
Thank you.
Jay, is that you? Did you just join? There you go.
Jay, we got Jay now, Marcia. So we're all here. Perfect. Mr. Hughes, this evening, would you like to sing the Pledge of Allegiance?
It'd be my pleasure.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which stands under the republic, nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jeff. Sarah Beth, do we have any correspondence?
So emails and letters that have been received as board correspondence prior to 4 p.m. today can be found in board books for anyone who wants to see those.
Great. Thank you very much. Public comment. Do we have any public comment this evening? If you have public comment, would you please raise your hand in the participants list? I don't see anyone. Dr. Budd, do you see anyone? Thank you. We'll move on to Board of Selectmen update. Sheila, hi. Nice to see you this evening.
Nice to see you all as well. So I just wanted to talk a little bit with you tonight. So now that the Board of Finance has set the recommended budget, that will be going to the preliminary budget hearing on April 18th. I'll leave the details for your discussion, I think, later in the meeting. I don't want to steal any thunder there. But I will thank you all again for your work on the budget and your openness to collaboration and compromise, a very key element of what we're doing together. So I also want to provide just a brief update from our Board of Selectmen meeting that was held on March 9th. The board has a subcommittee working on a strategic plan, and we were able to share a draft of that. We're going to work to finalize it. An important focus of the strategic plan for the Board of Selectmen is to ensure the ongoing fiscal stability of the town. So obviously this relates to our annual budget every year. But what we're focusing on is both the revenue side, which is growing and diversifying the grant list. You've heard a lot of talk about that, I'm sure. And then on the spending side of the budget, and that is moving forward to streamline, consolidate, share services to the greatest extent possible. So we know from past reports that there may be potential savings So we'll be looking again to work in close partnership with both boards of education and the school districts to see if what we can prioritize for immediate action in the coming fiscal year, and then what might come next after that, taking a longer term look at the situation. It's obviously in everyone's interest that we save taxpayer money while sustaining excellent level of service, especially in education. I'm sure you'll agree. So I'll just look forward to our ongoing conversations and our continued successful collaboration. Thank you again.
Thank you, Sheila.
Mhm.
PTO update? Joy? Yes, I see you.
Good evening, everyone. To further promote and foster the love of reading and sharing at Beecher, we are holding our 11th annual BRS PTO book swap this week. This is not your traditional book swap because all students, regardless of how many books they donate, can choose a book or several books depending on how many are donated. So today and tomorrow, children will be bringing in their pre-loved, good condition preschool, elementary school age books to their classroom teachers. We welcome as many books that families are willing to donate. This will increase the variety of books from which the children can choose and allow us to donate some afterwards. Classes are going to be coming to the book swap on Wednesday, March 23rd and Thursday, March 24th. And all students will be able to choose a book or several books depending on how many are donated. After the children make their selections, we invite Beecher teachers to choose books for their classroom libraries, and the remaining books are donated to the Friends of the Woodbridge Library and to local little free libraries. Arts Week 15, that's our 15th year, had their first meetings on February 17th and March 10th, and we'll be meeting again this Thursday at 3:45 in the South Art Room. This year's theme is trees and will be the week of May 23rd through the 27th. We're planning to have an in-person extraordinary week this year, which will include a brand new t-shirt design, thank you to Terry Landau, which will go on sale next week, a school-wide outdoor art installation of a leaf canopy, a concert, and an arts night for families with studios. We're now meeting regularly, so anyone interested in learning more or being part of the Arts Week committee can contact Vicki Burford at optonline.net. Empathy books were purchased this year again from the PTO. We purchased 60 books of the book I Am You, a book about Ubuntu by Rifalo Ma'ahali, originally published in South Africa, and picturing engaging illustrations of modern African life in varying settings. This book only recently became available in the USA. The philosophy of Ubuntu can be summed up as a belief that our connections to each other and shared humanity are what makes us who we are as individuals. We do not always have the same beliefs and backgrounds, but our differences are an asset. Essentially, it stresses the importance of community while reinforcing the benefits of making space for various viewpoints within the community. It was the perfect choice for our Empathy Week, which also coincided last week with the start of optional mask wearing. As with past years, this book will be added to every classroom library to serve as a mentor text in the future. Additional copies are also available in the library for checkout. The PTO also funded the purchase of book club books. In years past, this was an area that received designated funding. However, due to budgetary needs, this is no longer possible. Multiple copies of a variety of books that both support the reading and writing units of study and represent current high interest inclusive publications were purchased using $3,233.68 in scholastic dollars, which we accumulated during the book fair. These books will allow teachers to keep their reading curriculum fresh and afford students greater choice and voice in their book club selections. We have just formed a graduation committee for sixth graders, and that will be Amy Meacham and I co-chairing that. We're going to be reaching out to our sixth grade families this week and asking anyone interested in being involved to help with the planning. We're anxiously awaiting the dates for both graduation and field day. We are also excited because we've been asked to partner with the town's community council to participate in the upcoming Fun Ride Bike Parade on May 14th. There'll be a rain date of May 21st. The ride starts in the center of town at 9:30 a.m. with bike decorating. Amity Bikes will be there to perform bike checks, and then the ride will start. There's going to be 2 routes. One family-friendly route will head to Beecher and back, and that's where we get involved. We've been asked to host a pit stop at Beecher for the families, and we have some super fun surprises, including music and the bubble machine and some water and snacks to fuel them as they take their short ride back to the center of town, where there will be food trucks and music and more fun that day. More upcoming events we are excited about are the Spring Scholastic in-person book fair, which is April 25th through the 29th. And we'll be sending out a sign up for volunteers on that. We're going to be having Quasi Night with Bethany Community School on Friday, May 20th. Tickets will be $30 and are going on sale on April 1st. Teacher and Staff Appreciation, May 2nd through this May 6th. And our next PTO meeting will be on Thursday, April 7th at 7 p.m. via Google Meet. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. It's amazing, 15 years of Arts Week. It's
I think
really-
there's more actually, but that's when they
Well,
started
there was Art
counting.
Fest before that in the olden days. Thanks, Joy.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 2, consent agenda. The minutes from the February 9 and 23rd special meetings and the February 28, 2022 regular meeting are included in this evening's consent agenda, along with both a budget narrative, a budget summary, and a detailed financial report. Also included in tonight's consent agenda are the following policies: 3260, disposal of obsolete books, equipment, and supplies; 3250, materials, services, fees, charges; 3510, operation and maintenance of plant; 2111, equal employment opportunity; and 6171.2, preschool special education. Is there anything that anyone on the board wishes to extract from tonight's consent agenda? So the policies are on for 30-day review. I did not say that. May I have a motion to accept the consent agenda then? Maria? And a second. Jay, I saw your hand. All those in favor? Eight. David, are you in favor?
I am, thank you.
Good, that's unanimous, Marcia. Thank you. Number 3, superintendent's report. Dr. Budd.
Everybody, prior to our more substantial, thank you, everybody. Prior to our more substantial presentations this evening, just a few notes. Actually, this evening, musical notes. We've spoken before about the importance of arts to children, from drama to visual arts to music, how the arts allow children to explore creativity and imagination in ways otherwise unimaginable. And in that vein, tomorrow evening, Mr. Caldwell will be presenting in the South Assembly Room details about instrumental music lessons and ensembles for our grade 4 students and families. That's at 7 p.m. And I know you agree with me that it's wonderful to see the enthusiasm of young children for music and to hear the sounds of instruments back at Beecher. And sticking with the theme of the arts, I wish to commend 3 grade 6 students who recently auditioned and won a spot in the Connecticut Music Educators Regional Honor Festival. To the All-Region Concert Band, Shaylee Grogan on timpani and Ben Smith on trumpet were accepted. And to the All-Region Jazz Band, David Babick on drums was accepted. These honors are very prestigious, and suggests great futures for these students, futures in which music will always be an important part. Turning to the next item, March is Board Member Appreciation Month. And I do have some remarks, but first Selectman Heller is with us. And I'd like to turn over, if it's okay, Lynn, the floor to her to read and comment on the official proclamation for the 9 Board of Education members.
Absolutely. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you so much. You can all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This is once again an honor. I love doing this every single year. I hope you get a little present. You used to in the old days. Speaking of old days, I remember Art Fest, Lynn, very well. Years and years and years. I'm an oldie. Anyway, I have a proclamation to read to you all from the Board of Selectmen. Whereas an excellent public school system is vital to the quality of life in this community and fundamental to preserving a strong democratic society now and in the future. And public schools are being held to higher standards of accountability more than ever before at both the state and federal level. And whereas the members of the Woodbridge Board of Education represent an invaluable resource in this community as local decision makers responding to the challenges of assuring our school meets the high standards, and these school board members must formulate policies to assure that all children learn to their fullest potential. And whereas these board members continually strive for improvement and progress with an understanding of the need for commitment to the highest standards of student achievement and are working diligently to assure that our young people are educated and prepared for the future. And whereas the men and women elected to these positions deserve recognition and thanks for their countless hours of volunteer service to public education and the children of our community. Now, therefore, the Woodbridge Board of Selectmen and the Woodbridge School District thank all members of the Woodbridge Board of Education for their tireless and devoted service to our children, our schools, and our community, and urge all residents of our community to join us in expressing appreciation to these exemplary public servants, and hereby designate today, March 21st, 2022, as School Board Member Day. And it's signed by me as well as Dr. Budd. So thank you all very much. I get to clap. I'm the only one turned on here. But thank you all. That was really amazing, especially this year. It's been quite a year. So I thank you all on behalf of the board. Thank you for giving me some time.
And Beth, we thank you for always acknowledging the work of the Board of Education. So thank you very much for that and for your time being online with us so often this year,
You are
especially.
all real, true heroes and superstars, I have to tell you. Thank you. It's been a tough couple of years with COVID and everything else. And I'm in awe of what a wonderful job you've all done. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to stay on, but silence myself and stop my video. But I'll be here.
Thank you.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Dr. Budd.
I don't know if the board members knew that today was Board Member Day in Woodbridge, but you have another, 4.5 hours to celebrate it. And I don't know, some of that time will be on this meeting. But Beth, you gave a good lead in to me. We do try to get something tangible for the Board of Education members. And some of you have been on the board for a while and have coffee mugs or thermoses, pens, most of them from Cape. So we thought creatively about what would be the best appreciation. I should say that many people ask me from time to time anyway, what do those board members get paid? How much do we pay those board members? This is a good time for me to say it's a totally voluntary job. But we thought about what we can offer as a tribute of our appreciation. You know, later on the agenda tonight are the healthy food certification items. So in that vein, Ms. Roddy and I got to speaking, and this is where your being in person would really make a difference. But if you're not in person like Lynn is tonight, you have to come over in person because we have this nice lava cake and cheesecake package and Hershey Kisses for each of you, courtesy of Ms. Roddy. This is Lynn's package, so I don't want to turn it on its side, along with our great thanks. So if you don't come over tomorrow to get it, I'll send it home with your child, and I can't be responsible for it. But we do thank you very much, and we thought that although you won't be able to keep this on your shelf, or you shouldn't keep it on your shelf for 10 or 20 years like a mug, At the moments you're eating it, you'll remember Ms. Roddy and the great work she does, and also our thanks to you. And Lynn's across the hall, but at some point, I'll bring this over, and this is her dessert for tonight. So thank you again, everybody.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I am just so happy I am here. And the rest of you board
There's
members,
still time.
eat
People
your
can get in
heart
their
out.
cars and drive over one at a time. And Ms. Roddy's on the call, so thank you, Jane, for putting all of those together for everybody on the board.
Yes, thank you very much, Jane. And
Thank you, Jane.
and thanks to you as well, Jonathan. All right. Board members, I just have to say, I am so in awe of you so often for the amount of time that you give. And other than me on the board, you're all parents and you have families and your children and jobs. And my job is to be the chair of the Board of Education. That's what I tell everyone now that I'm retired from Beecher Road School. But you people really amaze me on a daily basis. You're there, you're engaged, you care, and I can't say enough about you and how lucky I am to have you as a member of a group that I am a part of. So thank you from the bottom of my heart as well. Safe return plan, Dr. Budd.
Sure, I'm going to just share a brief presentation with you. Just a minute, please. Look, you're on my screen. Can you see that? Okay, so this is our monthly standing item related to the safe return update. And first, I want to observe once again, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but the importance of keeping any child home if the child has symptoms of any illness, right? As an update to the Board of Education and the community, we continue to offer the state's program of in-school COVID testing, and it's been expanded the past week to include staff who are interested as well. So we still have about 120 students whose families have them participate, and about 20 staff members. Right across the hall from me, courtesy of the state of Connecticut, I have many free COVID-19 rapid self-test kits. So I would encourage you, if you're listening and need one, two, or several, to let me know. And we've been giving an update in these monthly reports about COVID cases in the Beecher community. So it seemed like the most logical place to go back to was March 7th, when mask choice began. We've had 10 confirmed COVID cases in Beecher through last Friday, and I just remind everybody that these are charted on our website, on our Safe Return webpage. When we talked about mask choice back on March 7th, we talked about mask choice as one of several mitigation strategies. And in other words, we weren't just moving to mask choice. We also were adjusting other mitigation strategies as appropriate. And so on this next slide, we have listed first the mitigation strategies that have already been released since March 7th. And then in the second part, the next mitigation strategies to be released. And this matches a chart that was in the March 7th presentation. And because some of these are very operationally specific to Beecher, I'm just going to mute and ask Lisa to talk through some of these with you. Oops. Sorry.
Good evening, everybody. All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to be here with you tonight. So as you know, and as Dr. Budd just mentioned, we did go mask optional beginning on March 7th. Our students and staff have all engaged in that process respectfully and kindly, and it did tie very nicely with our Empathy Week, One Book, One School Read Aloud that Joy had just mentioned. We have also ended our quarantining process for in-school close contacts. However, we are still engaging in a notification process. So if your child is a contact of somebody who did test positive, we are notifying families so that they are aware. Assigned seating on school buses for COVID purposes has ended. There may still be assigned seating for other reasons, but the assigned seating for COVID purposes on buses has ended, as well as recess cohorting. So grade levels are now mixing outside at recess and engaging with peers from across the different grade level classrooms. We are also loosening up our restrictions on school visitors. So we've seen that in action as our PTO book swap has gotten underway, and we have also engaged in some parent visitors in other capacities as well. Moving forward, we are going to open up the cafeteria for limited use. By that, I mean we will have one grade level at a time in the cafeteria starting this Monday. And we will also begin to eliminate or change social distancing in our classrooms as we allow the students to sit a little bit closer together. So that is what is coming up in the future.
Jonathan, you're on mute.
February 23rd, when the board supported mask choice starting on March 7th, the board also directed the administration to develop a metric to provide thresholds of risk that would be used to convene a meeting of the board to discuss potential reinstatement of the currently suspended mask policies. So again, the metric is to convene a meeting of the board, not a metric about whether masks would be reinstituted or not, but a metric to reconvene the board. You all met and made that motion on February 23rd, and then on February 25th, the CDC issued the new recommendations that give each county in the nation an official COVID-19 community level, and that's an active link in the presentation and board book that will take you to the science brief released by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So based on those recommendations in the board motion, meetings were held with our health partner, the medical advisor, our nursing supervisor, and I met with the superintendent of Bethany because their board made a similar motion. The next slide captures, as well as we can on a Google slide, the chart that's been developed by the CDC to rate each county. And if you can see it a little bit on your screen, I would just encourage you to click on the active link and you'll see more and in more detail. But essentially, each county is classified every Thursday afternoon as a low, medium, or high community level. And so that seems to be, in our recommendation, the place to start to consider whether this board would convene a special meeting. You should know that most recently, New Haven County was in the yellow at the medium community level. Other counties in the state were at the low level. But the administration would support the following. If the New Haven County community level went to the high level, and or there was clear evidence of significant in-school transmission at Beecher Road, then I would request through the chair or the vice chair that the board convene a special meeting. But then the special meeting would have to review much more specific data from Woodbridge, because remember, the community level is at the county level, which has some advantages, but it can't capture all the specifics of Woodbridge. It doesn't capture the specifics of Beecher. And then we would also at that time review the mitigation strategies, such as, but not limited to, masking, because if there were a high community spread level of COVID, or there were clear evidence of significant in-school transmission, masks potentially could be one thing that the board wishes to consider. But as Lisa has just mentioned, there's numerous other mitigation strategies. And of course, as at any meeting of the board, potential action could ensue. So as I sit here tonight, it doesn't look likely that we'll be convening that special meeting based on these criteria soon, if at all. But I think this is a reasonable way to be true to the CDC recommendations and ground us in that way of looking at the world in which we live. So that's my last slide on this presentation. Certainly Lisa and I are happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Lisa. I'll just go round quickly and see if anyone on the board has any questions on that. Maria,
No questions, thank you.
Sarah Beth,
No, I don't have any questions.
Jay? Okay.
No questions.
Brooke,
No questions.
Jeff?
And Lisa, thanks for returning to somewhat normal. It's awesome. Part of the social distancing process, will desk shields be removed too?
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. So desk shields is definitely on our list of mitigation strategies to remove. Currently, they are only being used during lunch and snack. So that is something that we will move toward eliminating in the coming weeks as well. That's definitely on our list as well.
Great, thank you.
David? Any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Thanks. Mike?
No questions. Thanks for the report.
Aaron?
No questions, but I would just echo what Jeff asked about, because I do think there's a lot of questions about the desk shields coming up. So yeah, I appreciate the question that Jeff asked and your response. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Dr. Budd and Lisa. Great work. We'll forge onward.
Lynn, can I just ask something actually? Sorry,
Yes.
I forgot to ask.
Sorry, Sarah Beth, I missed your hand. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I know Lisa, you had said that there were going to be field trips starting up, but I didn't see anything about it and I haven't heard anything. Are field trips actually coming back?
That's a great question. Thanks, Sarah Beth, for asking. So it's really dependent upon our field trips are always tied into curricular events. They're not just standalone trips often. So it really is dependent upon the grade level teachers and where they are in their units of study. If they have the opportunity to engage in field trips, those are just starting to open up as well. So it's really about having the time to search them out. And a lot of times teachers book them at the beginning of the year for the rest of the year. So it's a little tricky to engage in that process now, but I know that there are some grade levels that are exploring the possibility of some field trips, and we'll see if we can get some in the spring.
Great.
Can I
Sarah Beth, you can put your hand down, Sarah Beth. Who else said?
I'm sorry, can I just make a comment onto that? I'm glad they're tied to curriculum, and I know it's not a normal year, but maybe to get the ball in motion, some all-class field trip to a local park, or just a chance for the kids to get on a bus and get away from school. I think it's well-deserved after a couple of years of being cooped up and all the uncertainty. So again, I'm just asking for any outside-the-box thinking. I'm glad, again, they're curriculum centered, but any chance we get to get the kids on the bus and out, that was always the highlight of the year for the students was getting out on a field trip. So I just want to add that in.
Thanks, Jeff. Moving on to technology update. Dr. Budd, you again.
For everybody watching,
Jonathan, I can't hear you.
these presentations are in board book. I was just observing, so you can also see it there, but I'm going to project again. Just a minute, please. If you're on my screen now, can you see that? So I'm pleased to be joined by some, but certainly not all, of really fantastic group of colleagues doing fantastic things with technology. And we wanted to make sure that we are not trying to go a mile wide and an inch deep in this presentation, but highlight a few things in a little bit more depth. So I'm going to be joined tonight, besides Lisa, by Anthony Billings, our information technology manager, and by Jeannie Charleglio and Rachel Robinson, our technology specialist teachers. And our goal tonight is in 3 ways to highlight our district advances in technology: in hardware, in the teaching and learning of technology as a special subject, and in the use of technology to support the teaching and learning of other subjects. And to start with what might be the least interesting part, but without which nothing else can happen satisfactorily, I have to say, because I think it's his first opportunity to speak to the board at a public meeting, Anthony Billings has been an outstanding addition to our district as information technology manager. And come over and see him and his team in action anytime, and you'll see how busy they are at helping all the needs at Beecher. So, Anthony, I'm going to mute, and if you can just speak to these key hardware developments, some of the key ones that have occurred since last spring when the board had this update.
Thank you so much, Dr. Budd. And again, as you mentioned, I'm privileged to be able to speak on behalf of my team, but we have a dynamic team, two individuals you're going to hear from later, Jeannie Charleglio and Rachel Robinson, but I can't be, we definitely don't want to leave out our TA, Amber Sappho, who's an awesome member of our team. And without them, these developments that we've been able to accomplish over this school year would be impossible. So I want to thank my awesome team and what we're able to accomplish. So the 50 desktops, we were able to implement the new tech lab with new equipment, and along with setting up that new equipment, we also had to decommission the old equipment. So that was quite a bit of work that our team was able to get done, as well as the normal day-to-day functions of their teaching and other issues that come up. We also were able to deploy additional desktops in our makerspace and STEAM lab. This allows them to be able to institute those lessons in the classroom much faster with the newer technology. There was a purchase of document cameras to be able to assist in the hybrid learning experience that many of our students had to have this school year. So that was a great thing to be able to have those document cams to be able to assist in that learning process. And then lastly, we were able to deploy iPads to all teachers' assistants to assist in that learning experience in the classroom. So that consistent learning experience for each class would continue on with the technology that we rely upon each and every day. And again, so I thank you all for my time, and back to you, Dr. Budd.
Anthony, I just will take a quick detour into the personnel aspect to say you remember the board, many of you remember the board last spring supported a choice to bring information technology in-house as opposed to consulting with it through ACES. And Anthony's leadership of the hardware here is a key example of why that was a strong move on behalf of the board. Turning to the integration of technology into teaching and learning, as I think most of the board members know, technology is a special subject, special to everybody, but it's one of the specials taught for various grades. And Rachel Robinson is new to Beecher Road School this year. She joins expert technology specialist Jeannie Charleglio, and they're going to speak to you, especially in the area of coding, about how that is approached from the lowest grades here at Beecher to the highest. And I believe, Rachel, you're first with this, right?
Yes, correct. Okay, good evening. Okay, so the basis of technology classes, all technology classes are based on a combination of the Connecticut Core Standards, the ISTE, the International Society for Technology and Education Standards, and the Connecticut Computer Science Standards. So lessons are scaffolded to create a strong foundation in computer science with a focus on digital literacy, digital citizenship, and coding. Throughout their time at Beecher, students will learn how to use technology and then will use technology to learn. We focus heavily on 21st century skills. And on the next slide, Jeannie is going to dive in a little deeper into some of those topics.
We can't hear you. Can you?
Thank you. Gotta love when the tech teacher doesn't know how to unmute. So thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you tonight. This slide is a very quick hit of the scope and sequence of our scheduled classes in grades K1, 2, 3, and 4. Every class meets with us once per cycle for 30 minutes, with the exception of grade 3, which has two 30-minute classes per cycle. We try to use these classes to really give our kids foundational skills and build a love of technology, and help them learn to love the process and carry that forward into grades 5 and 6, where they get some additional opportunities. Thank you, Dr. Budd.
Okay, so we'll be focusing on coding at Beecher today. Like Jeannie said, there's a lot of topics that we cover, but this is a topic that we cover across all grades and we think is really important. 7 different studies show children who study computer science perform better in other subjects, excel at problem solving, and are more likely to attend college. That is a quote from code.org. They are pulling information from studies from the Journal of Educational Psychology, as well as the University of Chicago. Kindergarten and grade 1. So kindergarten and grade 1 are based on the understanding the fundamentals of coding concepts. So sequencing, properties, loops, conditions, and functions are taught in a combination of direct lessons. These lessons correlate to everyday routines. They explore the program Codable, which the kids really love. It's a lot of fun. And we also have added robotics, so including those hands-on experiences in first grade with Ozobots and Bbots.
With grade 2, our main focus really is on keyboarding. It's an essential year. Starting in grades 3 through 6, they are really in need of that skill, but we do always take time to give them some additional coding reinforcement that they have learned in grades K and 1. This year, we have focused on using code.org and some of the Hour of Code challenges to help do that. We have also built on our internal website a specific grade 2 classroom where they can go during times that their teachers deem appropriate to continue that exploration independently. So grade 3 happens to be my favorite year to teach. Grade 3 is a very robust year. We continue the typing once per cycle with the students to help build on those skills. But we also dive very deeply into all those core concepts that they learned in K1 and reinforced in 2. One of the main programs we use is Scratch. We then take that same block-based coding and give them hands-on exploration with Dash robots. The pictures that you're seeing in this slide are some taped out mazes that we created around the tech lab. You are welcome to come see them at any time. We'll give you a robot to play with. It's a lot of fun. They work in small groups, gives them a little bit of collaboration skills, and have to code the robots to perform tasks. So every time they go from one maze to another, there will be additional skills that they have to build upon.
All right, grade 4. Grade 4, we focus a lot on digital citizenship. That is a big chunk of our year, making sure that now that our kids know how to use technology, we need to make sure that they're using it safely and appropriately. In grade 4, we do talk about the ethics of coding and computing. So we start to explore the ethical implications of coding. Students learn about artificial intelligence and machine learning and how coding is applied to the real world. So it's not just about this is how we code now, it's more about how coding is actually used. All right, so grade 5 students were invited into the lab for the National Hour of Code after they received direct lessons from both myself and Jeannie. Homeroom teachers were able to continue bringing them into the lab when they're still coming into the lab to be able to explore independently during open lab hours. And they really enjoy working on some of these coding projects in the lab.
And this year with grade 6, we had an amazing opportunity to collaborate with our fabulous library team and open up Makerspace for the first time. During Makerspace, and every 6th grade class gets that once per cycle, students are allowed to practice block-based coding and kind of dive more into JavaScript during both structured and independent time. We've also allowed them to have the opportunity to do other things outside of coding, but we're going to try to stay focused on this.
Right, so tag, grade 4 tag students were challenged to design and build plows for the Dash robots and work together to clear a snowstorm that mysteriously happened in the BRS Library Media Center. So they had a blast. We had cotton balls everywhere. They had to work on their engineering skills. They had to build the plows. We were really focusing on the collaboration, problem solving, perseverance. If your first idea didn't work out, and they really just had a lot of fun working on that project throughout the course of a few cycles. Grade 5 through 6 students are currently using their coding skills to create 3D printed vehicles that will soon be raced, and that's going to be a lot of fun as well. And we also have a video on this slide if that can be played. This is an example of a student creation. There's no audio, but it does show what they were able to build and then how they were able to get their snowplow working. Thank you.
Well, the enthusiasm of Jeannie and Rachel that comes through just a little bit here is, when Lisa talks about bringing visitors back into Beecher, visitors must go if they possibly can to the maker space, the tech lab, the media centers. These are really fabulous places of engagement for our children. And speaking of people who just make the experience worthwhile for children every day, Jeannie and Rachel add to that in spades every day. Technology is used through the special areas they've spoken about, very important. But we also see technology as not just an ends, but also a means to some other important ends. Lisa's going to speak about some of the key ways technology is supporting teaching and learning in other subjects.
Thank you so much. So Jeannie and Rachel and Anthony were really able to talk about the technology lab and the work that they're doing there, but definitely, as Dr. Budd mentioned, the work that they do extends way beyond technology lab in the Library Media Center and into the classroom on a daily basis. So just a few. It was actually a little challenging to narrow it down to just a few specific examples, but we were talking a little bit about grade 4 and the work that they're doing in the grade 4 classrooms, which is by no means representative of everything happening across the Beecher community, but just a small sampling to share with you. So first of all, those document cameras that were mentioned earlier that Mr. Billings had talked about deploying, and we have to give a shout out to the PTO for supporting the purchasing of those. I've had the opportunity to witness those in action daily by all teachers. Recently, I was in a 4th grade teacher's classroom and she was actually teaching lessons around theme and using that document camera in order to engage all of her students by engaging in a picture book and really able to zoom in on some of the details within the picture book that help the students to identify the theme of that book. They also, the 4th grade teachers, and I know others do as well, they focus on the use of theme not only through picture books and written text, but also through short videos. So giving the students an opportunity to engage in learning in a new and different way, they'll play a brief Disney short movie and ask the students to think through the theme of that movie and then to provide evidence from what they viewed in order to back up their learning. So it's a really nice way to engage the students in a different way, not just text-based, not just written, but also visual and audio. So that is another way that they're using some of their technology to engage the students in interesting learning. And then it says science interactively. We can definitely add math to that as well. The teachers utilize all of the technology tools at their hands, including video-based lessons that are really engaging and interactive, where the students are posed questions and given theories to consider, and they engage in that video and in that interactive process with the teacher's assistance as they go through a scientific process to discover and create their own knowledge around a specific content topic. So I've seen that in action also in fourth grade and in other classrooms as well. And it's really fun to watch the kids, watch a video a little bit and then stop a video, turn and talk with one another, develop their own theories, build their own experiments, and sort of go back to that video to see the process that the online learning component had, and then re-engage with their peers and their partners. And it's really just so exciting to watch that process with students and to watch the engagement level of the students. So as we look toward the next coming months and even into next year, one way that we know we are going to continue to learn and grow at Beecher Road School is to continue to really rely on our technology team. They are fabulous. They're doing amazing work every single day, and really looking to engage in the technology specialist teachers, Jeannie and Rachel, and our support staff, Amber, and Anthony Billings as well, in supporting the technology integration across the classrooms and every single day. The teachers are constantly coming up with new ways to support our student learners, and they look to the support of the technology department to sort of make those ideas a reality. So continuing that work is something that we will have as an ongoing goal here at Beecher. And then also the opportunity to share. There are teachers who do try new things out and who do engage in new learning and who find something exciting, and they have an old technology tool that they're used to using, but they may use it in a new and different way. And just continuing to share that strong practice, the engaging lessons, the ideas that teachers come up with, and making sure that we're sharing it across grade levels. So if a second grade teacher does something really great and really engaging using technology, that they have the opportunity to share it with a fourth or fifth or sixth grade teacher, to make sure that we're really building our own capacity and learning from one another.
There's a way in which hopefully technology is so embedded that we really could do a 80-hour presentation on it, but we're not. So it's the end of our presentation, not a mile wide and an inch deep, hopefully, but hopefully of some interest to you, both from a hardware and a teaching and learning perspective. And Lynn, I know any of the team is more than happy to answer questions.
Jonathan, thank you. And thanks to you, Rachel, Jeannie, as always, Anthony. Anthony is amazing. When you have a chairman of the board who is a little technologically challenged, Anthony's become my go-to guy with questions. So I thank him profusely for helping out when I need it. I'm going to go around, see if there's any questions. Maria?
Thank you, Lynn. I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to thank the team for the amazing work that you do and for that wonderful presentation. I can tell you that the children, I know, especially in our household, absolutely love the programs, are completely engaged and enthralled by them, can't wait to do more work on them. And I know that other students and families feel the same. So thank you all for your hard work and efforts. They're so appreciated.
So true. Sarah Beth?
No, thank you.
David?
Then he doesn't have any questions at the moment.
Thank you. Erin?
Hi, that was an amazing presentation. I learned so much. I do have a question, and I ask this question anytime we talk about technology, which is how do we go about teaching our kids about online safety? Especially since many of them start gaming, around third grade, and some of them are on social media apps before they leave our community. I'm curious what we do intentionally about online safety, both in terms of gaming and social media.
So I'm actually going
I don't
to
mind
default-
starting, and then anybody else, of course, can chime in. So I do know that is a part of the technology curriculum that they teach our students. They talk a lot about online safety, about especially about personally identifiable information. I know that there's definitely little quizzes that they take online. I took one once with the students. So there's definitely opportunities intentionally built into the technology curriculum that is taught directly and explicitly to the students. I know that they do that in the technology lab. I'll tell you that they also do it in other places. I know last month when Officer Lynch presented at a curriculum committee meeting. So sorry, I was mixing up my meetings. Officer Lynch did participate in a curriculum committee meeting, and he talked a little bit then about the DARE programming and how that is another place where he talks about online safety and about cyberbullying. And I also know that it's integrated a little bit into Miss Buzzard's health curriculum as well. So there's really a few different opportunities where not only in technology classes are students learning about exactly what you're talking about, Erin, but also in DARE programming and our health curriculum as well. Jeannie, if you want to add anything, please feel free to go right ahead.
I am going to say that what you said
Rachel.
is.
There you go. Or Rachel also, of course, but I was going to say you're muted, Jeannie, but you unmuted.
I'm unmuted. What Lisa said is completely on point. We do start talking about it with our very youngest learners all the way up, but our grade 4 curriculum is 100% based on exactly what your question is about. So I'm actually going to default to Rachel, who is doing grade 4 this year. So
Yes. Grade 4, the first half of the year, we spent lots of time on identifying what's safe information versus personal identifying information online, password safety. That was definitely a big topic. How to identify and evaluate a website for false information was, and we're even going into a little bit about malware, clicking and downloading things. We're starting to get a little bit into those topics now as well. But we do spend a lot of time. Oh, and cyberbullying. We spent a lot of time on cyberbullying. So we do talk a lot about it. And grade 4 is really that main year that in technology class they're learning about it. But of course, we do bring it into the curriculum throughout all the years.
And you probably, I'm assuming you talk about this, but just do you talk at all about how I have noticed, and having a child in grade 4 who does video games, how easy it is for a friend of a friend who my kid has never met to get involved in their group? And so do you talk about how someone can appear to be a friend and you actually, unless you've met them offline, don't know who they are and things like that?
Yes, we've absolutely had that conversation, but I think there's always more opportunities to have that conversation. I know it's a big part of our students' lives.
Awesome. Thanks.
I would just like to add one thing, which is in kindergarten, first and second grade, we actually have an excellent selection of very developmentally appropriate books, like story-based books that we do read throughout the school year to all those different grade levels that touch on this subject. That is one of the personal safety and stranger danger are probably the 2 biggest topics we hit on with our youngest learners.
Excellent. Great. Brooke, Erin, I'm sorry. Did you have anything else? Okay. Brooke?
No, excellent job. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jay?
Thank you, tech team. Anthony, I had a quick question about, so we've got this increase in technology. We've got the new lab with the new demands on the Wi-Fi, etc. So I'm seeing an ever-present need now of upgrading the system. Do you give us some indication on what our needs would be in that? And I know we've got some things in the capital plan. I would think we need to accelerate those given all the great work we're doing in technology. So could you sort of just briefly outline in a minute or two about what our needs would be in terms of, I mean, I see Lynn here, she keeps going on and off from time to time, and the spotty Wi-Fi, we need to, really invest in this and very quickly so that we can take advantage of all of these great opportunities that our students across the curriculum seem to have. So could you just give me a quick outline or us a quick outline? Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Jay. So we've actually been working with our facilities team, as we've talked about in the past in some of the meetings, how integrated the network is with our facilities. So we're actually going to be working closer together to leverage some of the abilities for different federal funds to be able to share the costs of some of those, the burden. Of course, those network upgrades can be costly. So once we kind of work things out and identify some of the needs that our facilities team will need, we'll definitely have a better understanding of exactly what that will entail. But of course, as we know, technology is something that is ever growing, especially in the classroom, and we definitely want to make sure that we have the best technology available for our learners and for our teachers to be able to assist our learners.
Thank you, Anthony. It's always good to hear when there's, applying for federal funds or any other funding sources. As on the finance committee, this is great to hear, and working with the facilities committee. Thank you.
So it's perfect that we ask Jeff next, who chairs our facilities committee. Any questions, Jeff?
I couldn't agree with Jay more. No, what an awesome team and what an awesome resource for children. Nice job, guys. Thank you. You just might want to add some adult education to your repertoire, because we all could probably use it. So keep up the good work. Thank you.
Yeah, I support that, Jeff. I think that in the past, prior to COVID, there have been some really terrific educational programs for parents around technology and some of the issues that Aaron even spoke of. And I would highly support that now that we're lifting some of the restrictions for COVID to reinstate some of those things. So I think that's great. Mike.
No questions. Just want to say thank you for that great presentation, and thank you for making this a very useful, helpful resource to our kids. My son is someone who loves technology, and I really appreciate that you all have provided a resource for him to continue to foster those skills and his love. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Again, I want to thank the tech team for your amazing work and for taking time out tonight to present to the board. We always appreciate being educated by the educators. So I thank you for your efforts and your time. Beecher Road School update. Ms. Sherman.
Good evening, everybody. And I just have a few quick things to update you on. I want to start by mentioning the professional development that we just had this past Friday. The teachers had the opportunity to hear from some presenters from CEA. They came and talked to us about implicit bias. It was an incredibly interactive workshop day, and we were together in person and had the opportunity to engage in some really deep conversations and some opportunities to get to know one another even a little bit better, and to share some of our own thoughts and our own work and progress on this journey of becoming better educators and better people. We also had the opportunity to engage in defining implicit bias, talking about microaggressions, and thinking about what to do next and how to move forward in this work. This is connected to our district goal and was a really wonderful learning opportunity for all of our staff members. I know that Joy already talked about this, but I do want to just quickly mention Empathy Week again. I brought the book to show everybody. Here it is, I Am You. So many thanks to the PTO for purchasing this book for all of our classroom teachers. It's really, really beautiful, and many, many thanks to our library teachers and our literacy specialists who helped put together Empathy Week activities for all of the students. I'm just going to read one quick section just from the inside cover. It says, in Southern Africa, there is a belief called Ubuntu, the idea that we are all connected. No matter where we're from, what we like to do, or who we are, a person is a person through their connections to other people. So it's just a really beautiful story. The words are simple, but the message is powerful. And our library teachers and our literacy specialists put together some amazing activities for our students and teachers to engage in. They built a kindness chain. All students were given a strip of paper and they wrote an act of kindness on it that they had done, and they turned it into a really beautiful rainbow chain that's hanging in the library right now. They also did a class picture of one another, and they had to decide as a class what that picture could look like. So some classes took pictures of their hands all together. Some classes took pictures of their feet. But it was just really awesome to see all the differences in not only the pictures, but also within the classrooms. And then another activity that they engaged in was a portrait of a buddy. So younger kids were paired up with older kids. Many of them got together outside, and not only did they engage in the shared reading of the book, but they also engaged in some activities throughout the week. And the very last activity was to draw a portrait of their buddy. So it was really an amazing week filled with lots of wonderful connecting and learning and growing together. I'm also really excited to share with you that the cafeteria, many thanks to BJ Ahern and Chris Hart-Rooney and the members of the Green Team, because we are going back to something that we had actually started a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, which is really beginning our food diversion process. So we can definitely talk more about this in the future, but it is essentially an opportunity for our students to engage in recycling more deeply, and also composting and saving any uneaten food, which hopefully eventually will get donated. In the past, we had donated it to the town, back into the town, and we also saved some things for students to choose from. If they wanted an extra apple, for example, there would be apples available for kids to take from the food diversion. So we are starting that up again. Many thanks again to the Green Team, like I said, and also to our parent volunteers, some of whom are coming in to visit the cafeteria and help out with that. And my last announcement, I have a prop for this as well that Dr. Budd is already laughing about. I did, in fact, wear this all day long because it is Spirit Week. And today for Spirit Week was Crazy Hat Day. And yes, I walked around with a rainbow on my head all day long, and socks. I do have socks on. I can't show you those as easily. But today was Crazy Hat, Hair, and Sock Day. Tomorrow is Black and White Day, and Wednesday is Pajama Day, Thursday is Formal Day, and Friday is Spirit Day. In addition to all of these really fun opportunities to dress up, the Student Council is collecting coins each day, and they will be donating those coins to a charitable organization that the Student Council members will decide. So many thanks to the Student Council members and the Student Council leaders for bringing this once again back to Beecher Road School, and for all of the teachers and students who participated, and for not laughing at me too much in my amazing rainbow hat. Happy to take any questions that you have. I might take my hat off though.
Lisa, thank you so much. Your enthusiasm always makes me smile. Are there any questions for Lisa? Go ahead, Brooke.
Do you have photos, Lisa?
I avoided many cameras, Erin, I'm not gonna lie. And that's why my hair is like a total disaster, because it was in the hat all day. Everyone was impressed. I kept it on all day long.
Brooke, did you have
You're
a question?
brave woman, Annalise, the brave woman rocking that all day. Oh. I have a question. You brought up microaggressions in the teaching. How was that? Like, what was that used? Or I know microaggressions. I'm just wondering, as far as how the training, like, how did that go over? Like, what was that about? Or how was that used?
Yeah,
or what was it used
asking.
for?
So that was just one part of the implicit bias training. And it was really about identifying what they are and thinking about what to do if you experience them or if you witness them. A little bit about how you can be an ally, a little bit about just recognizing how our own biases might lead to, unintentionally, but might lead to microaggressions, and how we can sort of think through that.
Got it. Okay. I guess I keep going back to, I know last time we talked about the DEI, and I feel like a lot of these trainings are kind of stealing time from the teachers and that they can't really focus on some of the academics that some of the kids are really lacking right now. And so focusing more on some of the academic trainings, are there any more of those coming up? I just, I know everyone with substitutes, there's lack of those. Just kind of, I don't know, just my notes I'm thinking. Just really wanting to make sure we're serving more of academic needs.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brooke. Yeah, so our faculty, so that was a professional development day that we had recently. Our faculty meetings are often devoted to academic work, as are all of our PLC meetings, which happen regularly during the 6-day cycle.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Lisa? Lisa, I just want to thank you for the great job you do in building community in our school on a daily basis, but and student council for their work. This week's going to be amazing, and I know that you're already thinking about the rest of the week. I want to see you on formal day. Okay, thanks, Lisa. We're moving on to curriculum committee. Mike.
So we met on March 10th at 4 o'clock. We discussed two different topics. One was the DARE program. There was a presentation by Officer Lynch, Beecher's SRO. And the second topic was some updates on some curricular developments, literacy curricular developments. On the first topic, we got an overview of the DARE program from Officer Lynch. And one of the important things to know about DARE is that in addition to being a drug prevention program, it addresses many other topics, some of which were already mentioned by Lisa. One of those topics is online safety, but it also addresses things like decision making, behavior management, and many other topics. And this is taught in our sixth grade, the sixth grade level. All students get exposure to that. It's a 16-week program, and students have a nice graduation at the end of it. Something else to know about DARE, which I was unaware of until I started looking into DARE again, is that some of you maybe have heard of DARE, some bad news about DARE from several years ago, that there was some evidence that DARE was not only ineffective, but was producing negative effects. That was many, many years ago. I learned about it in grad school myself. But it's important to know that since then, the program has been revamped, and the current program, the current DARE program that's been in existence for many years now, called Keeping It Real DARE, no longer has any of those concerns that the first iteration of DARE had. So I just wanted to share that because that was something I was aware of and initially had some concerns about, and then learned that this is a entirely new, revamped, and far more effective program that we've been using. So that was DARE. We also got an update from Lisa on some of the literacy enhancements we're exploring at the school. One of which is Heggerty Literacy Program, which is a phonics-based program. We've been using DIBBLES, which is an assessment program, an assessment package that's being used for kindergarteners and first graders, and is administered 3 times a year in the fall, winter, and spring, to understand where students are and in terms of literacy, and to provide them with supports. The other important thing to know about some of these literacy enhancements is that there was a state legislation that was passed that's going to require all school districts to implement a evidence-based literacy curriculum by July 2023. And we will have to get our program, our curriculum approved by the state. There will be some programs that the state will determine are these evidence-based literacy curricula, and districts will either have to pick one of them or apply for a waiver. And I think we're still awaiting information from the state about what that waiver process might look like. But in addition to doing these literacy enhancements for just for Beecher to stay on top of the newest advancements around literacy, we're preparing for that to be responsive to that requirement for all school districts.
Thanks, Mike, for that report. Any questions for Mike? Okay, I don't see any. Moving on, Finance Committee report. Jay?
Thanks, Lynn. Lynn, I may need to share just two tables that were in the report that Jonathan sent us, but I'll do that in a second.
Okay, Marcia, can you take care of Jay sharing? Thank you.
I can talk as I go through it.
You should be able to share just by going down to the bottom of his screen.
Perfect, thanks. I just wanted to check. Thank you, Marcia. Thanks so much. So very quickly, we met on Tuesday, the 15th of March. That's our monthly meeting. At the meeting, the administration presented the operating budget, the current operating budget as of March the 1st. Jonathan's going to talk about the capital and operating budget. Superintendent Bud is going to talk about the updates. So I'm going to leave that to Superintendent Bud. We also reviewed two policies, one pertaining to budget development and the other pertaining to the disposal of obsolete books. So let me quickly summarize where we are with respect to the budget. The great thing about the budget so far is that we're forecasting a surplus of $22,690 for the end of the year. Now, remember, this is just a forecast. And if I go back to October, we were in the hole with about $180,000 to $200,000. So I'd like to congratulate Richard, Jonathan, and the administration in getting us back right on track and forecasting a surplus just over $22,000. It's excellent work. Now, the key points that were raised at the meeting were some sort of items that we should look at on the horizon. For example, the MRF contribution for next year would increase by about 1%. And I sort of looked at that. It's not a significant component, so that's something we need to keep an eye on. But one thing that did come out at the meeting, which was mentioned by Richard Hewitt, who's the interim business manager, is he mentioned that our building comprises 160,000 square feet. And there's about 1,000 people daily that use the building. Now, if you take a look at your home might be 2,000 square feet and you've got 4 people. So you've got about 500 square feet per person. At the school, if you notice, it's much smaller. So it's very, very important for us to replace the assets and maintain them. And this is one very unpredictable component of the budget. So we really have to keep an eye on these property services and ensure that everything is up to date and up to speed. So that was one part of the budget that really does need attention. And I know Jeff works on the facilities committee. So we're committed to updating the assets and the maintenance. So the capital budget is so important here. There's also changes on the horizon for the excess cost grant that the state provides to us. Put simply, the state is presenting an option where it might be a tiered approach. So if it's a tiered approach, this may put us at a significant disadvantage in terms of the level of reimbursement we receive. So it's suggested that we contact state representatives, and I think it would be a recommendation I would make to the Finance Committee and the board that we have our representative come to one of our meetings and we can discuss our concerns directly with our representative at that time. There's also some timing issues on the reimbursement that doesn't work with our budgeting process currently. Superintendent Budd and Richard Hewitt also presented an outline of the ESSER and ARPA funds and how they're used and how they would be used. If you go to the report I posted up on the board book, appended to that report is a document that is entitled the Woodbridge School District Proposed Fiscal Year Operating Budget Question and Answer Sheet, March 10, 2022. Now, what I wanted to just quickly point out on this is in this report, the superintendent and the head of business operations both answered a lot of questions that have been raised by the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. And I felt that they did an excellent job in answering some of the questions that were raised with respect to our budget requests, both our capital and operating budget. But what I wanted to point out was something that I thought would be very, very useful for us to see as a community. So I'm just going to share this, if I can, just share this with you all. Okay. Lynn, can you see that table?
Yes, I can, Jay.
Okay, excellent. So this is on the report. It's available to everybody. Just go to Board Book and you can download this. The first thing I wanted to show you is I wanted to show you some data on the enrollment of at the school. So if we take data over the last 10 years, I believe, on a rolling basis, what you'll notice is this is a list of schools that are, I would consider our peer schools. They're in our Durham schools. We've got Bethany in there. We've got Orange. We've got Greenwich, Monroe, Trumbull. And if you notice here, you'll notice there's a trend that right across our peer schools is a decline. I'm just going to make that smaller. Decline of about 10% in enrollment. In contrast, if you take a look at our school district, Woodbridge has seen an almost 14% increase. Now, as you all know, whenever you see an increase in enrollment, that entails a significant operating as well as a capital budget investment in the school. Now, related to that, I'd also like to point another item that the administration put together, and they put together this item on per pupil cost growth. Now, I know that there's some limitations because this isn't perfectly comparable because different items are included, but the state puts this data together. So I'd like to think that, you know, this is a very good indicator on per pupil cost growth over the last 10 years. And what you'll notice is that on average, the pupil cost growth has been around 40% in peer schools. Now, you didn't see Woodbridge on there because Woodbridge is right at the bottom at about 13%, 12.8% to be exact. So on these two metrics, what you'll notice is that the school district has been increasing enrollment, unlike our peer schools, but at the same time maintaining this much lower than median growth in its cost per pupil, which is, I think, testament to how well we've done in managing our resource and how tight the budgets really are. Contrary to what popular belief might say, we really do have very, very tight budgets. Now, the next finance meeting is on Tuesday, April the 5th at 4:30 p.m. Everyone's welcome to join. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you, Jay. Board members, any questions for Jay? I don't see any. We're going to move on to the proposed 2022-2023 capital budget and operating budget update. I think Jay was passing that to you, Dr. Budd.
Hey, can you see this on your screen? Okay, this is also in board book, everybody. We were very blessed last week to have the town board of finance make some decisions about our proposed capital budget and operating budgets. And of course, they had a meeting 2 weeks prior. They asked a series of questions. They're very receptive to getting answers to those questions, visiting the school, getting feedback, etc. And they had their own meeting, so I won't try to summarize every detail of it, but I'll say that we continue to have a good working relationship of collaboration, cooperation, and partnership with the town. And our job tonight is to report to you where the Board of Finance moved our budget proposals to and what that might imply for us. This is not a action item that needs to be voted on tonight because the process is still unfolding. There'll be a preliminary hearing in mid-April and ongoing discussions. And ultimately, the board will need to reconcile and finalize a budget in June prior to the July 1st fiscal year. But we're here to give you an update tonight. So perhaps the place to start is our capital budget proposal. The vast majority of which was really endorsed solidly by the Board of Finance, and that includes a sizable roof replacement project on 3 wings of our building, flooring remediation and replacement that go along with some design reconfiguration in the south parts of the school, etc., for the next fiscal year. They also approved in the capital budget the proposed architect fees that are associated with the roof replacement. Those had come out of our operating budget as part of our last discussion, and the board approved those for our capital budget. They also approved a oil tank remediation project that is necessary at the north end of the school. They did not approve in our proposal 2 smaller projects. One is a retro commissioning project. The retro commissioning project investigation has really just been completed in the past few days with some recommendations. And so this was a funding project based on those HVAC recommendations and also a network wiring project. And of course, I think we just heard about the importance of strong network wiring for all sorts of things. So the point is, we really have 2 funding sources for those. Potentially, they might be able to be funded in the current operating budget when we get closer to the end of the school year. If funds remain, they may be able to be funded from the ARP ESSER grant. Actually, they would be able to be funded from the ARP ESSER grant if they cannot be funded in the current operating budget. But the capital budget proposal has its own life, if you will. The operating budget is what we've been speaking about mostly. And again, I just want to remind everybody, or preaching to the choir, that we are trying with this operating budget to maintain the excellence of Beecher within a time of escalating student needs. And as Jay has mentioned, we have more students than we did 10 years ago, and the needs of those students are greater, some of which are pandemic needs, but not all of them. So to remind you briefly of the history, 2 months ago, it seems like a long time in some ways, but 2 months ago, this board reduced the initial operating budget proposal to a 9.21% proposal. And I'm not going to read these items again, but I would observe that they hit most every non-instructional operational area of the budget. In fact, our medical insurance increase now is about 0%. So as we've said before, there's not really much more in these areas that can be cut. It's been cut already. Then at the February 28th meeting, there was no board action, but Richard and I presented to you more or less some technical edits that can occur and an increase to the pre-K tuition, which you approved, and you should know we've had a high interest in the program at that tuition rate and the 5-day-a-week model. So that was a very successful move. Increasing the E-Day revenue that will be offset against the board budget. And then the last one there is actually an add we had to make to the budget. We have to pay more in magnet school tuition for a student who goes to a magnet school. At any rate, these changes would conform with the 8.92% increase that was supported by the Board of Selectmen. Now, the Board of Finance a very important series of adjustments here. First, the 8.92% increase was lowered to 5%. However, they are going to directly, they're going to recommend that the town directly appropriate $167,500 of next year's excess cost grant revenue directly to the Board of Education. And that 167, in addition to the 5%, makes an effective increase of 6.08%. So the difference between 8.92 and 6.08 is 2.84. And ultimately, that would mean an additional savings of just over $440,000 that would have to be identified. And we talked at an earlier meeting about tier 2 and tier 3, and you're going to see most of those items come up in the next couple of slides. Again, this is not for a board vote, really, or actually at all, just to show you here are some pathways that can get us to about 440,000, if that's the position we're in a few months. So the board very wisely has supported an additional social worker. That social worker, I'm on the first row, could be funded by ARP ESSER. ARP ESSER cannot supplant things already in the operating budget, but an additional position in the social emotional realm could be supported. The impact of that, of course, is simply we have to be careful in another year that we'll have to absorb it then into the operating budget. The next row down is similar. You might remember that this year we had to add a special education teacher in September because of many more special education students in one grade coming into the district. We were able to fund that through a grant this year. We had thought we would move it to the operating budget, but we can add that to ARP ESSER for next year. And again, it's the same as the top line. We would just have to observe in another year to bring that in the operating budget. The next several items that are on this slide and go to the next are from tier 2 and tier 3 that you had seen already. They are relatively minor in terms of dollar amounts. And in some cases, it just means, again, we have to watch out for that operating budget impact for the next year. So because we've talked about these before, I won't go into great depth unless anyone wants. You have seen these on this slide before. A reduction in dues and fees, curriculum writing, a supplies cut. I would just observe that the supplies is a big category, which encompasses instructional supplies, office supplies, custodial supplies, library books, and online subscriptions. And ultimately, the administration would need to make some recommendations in May or June about how to achieve that 10%. So it's not necessarily the case that families would absorb the cost. However, there's a limit to how many, say, custodial supplies we can cut, right? So there's some interplay there. The board had supported an additional half-time custodian. We could modestly reduce our support in that area. The board had hoped to be able to add an additional STEAM specialist teacher. That need could be deferred. We have a running subtotal on these charts, you see. And then on the next slide, rather than the board adding 6 new general ed TAs next year, the board could add 3 general ed TAs. The board does have to add 4 special ed one-on-one TAs. Had hoped to add 6 general ed TAs, but could phase that in over a couple of years. And then the board had hoped to add an additional class section. We do believe we're going to have large numbers in kindergarten, but it's a work in progress. Now, in May, when we come back to you, we'll know more information. We're just presenting some pathways at the moment. And if that additional section did not materialize, or if we added the 7th kindergarten and had to trim at another grade level, that's about a $66,000 savings. So the object of tonight is not to get forensically exactly at $441,000, but just to show that we are within striking distance. Do we think these things are important? Yes, but recognizing the important collaboration between the board and the town, these pathways are possible. There's also some pathways that are not related to dollars yet on the next slide. We will continue to look for savings in non-instructional areas, which will always be our preference over instructional areas. And Richard and I have a meeting with town leaders tomorrow on some topics there we may be able to share later. The one item you saw in tier 2 and 3 that is not on here is trimming back our number of interns. That's a problematic area for us because the fewer interns we have, the more we need to rely on pulling specialist teachers from intervention in order to cover staff who must be absent. So we have not included that in the prior pathway, and we would hope not to need to do that. And then as the year moves forward, there's often the opportunity to have some non-determined personnel savings. An example might be if in the area of consolidation, retirement, resignation, etc. So that's why we can't estimate every single thing here in March. But at any rate, that is an example of where we are. Unfortunately, fortunately actually, Lynn has the date of the preliminary hearing, which I did not bring to my desk here. So it's mid-April, right?
Yes, it's the third Monday of April, which I believe is, I can tell you in one moment, the 18th, which is normally our Board of Ed meeting, but it will not be because it will be the preliminary hearing for the town. The board will meet the next day.
So I think it's quite important to keep showing how we want to do the best for the children of Woodbridge here at Beecher Road School, and that shows you how we're going to continue to work with the town toward that effort. Certainly, Richard's next to me here, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Jonathan. That was a really comprehensive overview. I'm going to just remind the board that we're not taking action tonight. We have time to do that, but if anyone has a question, this would be the time to ask. Jay.
Hey, Jonathan. So something puzzles me. So I know we get the excess cost grant every year. And what I noticed in your presentation is that the excess cost grant was for 22-23. So what about the excess cost grant this year? So could you give us some indication on what that amount is, what it's used for, so everybody understands what it should be used for and what it should be implemented for, and whether some of that could mitigate the needs for next year in terms of moving some of the technology? I noticed you put things on the capital budget that weren't included, the technology upgrade, etc. Rather than use the ARP and ESSA funds there, could we not use the excess cost grant that would come in this year for those, because we've got this great tech team and great new tech lab and we could all do with the better access. So are there any opportunities there, and where do we stand with respect to that?
It's on our list of topics with the town tomorrow, as a matter of fact, but I'll let Richard pick up exactly as a recap what it's used for, how we get the money, why it goes to the town, et cetera.
Historically, can you hear me? Okay. Historically, in most communities, the excess cost grant is to help cap unexpected special ed costs in current fiscal year. So the submission of the detail that the special ed department loaded onto the state website is for students' costs associated for the current year. And that money is to help bridge the gap of unexpected expenses. This year, it's been rather unusual, and but the history here is that the grant has gone to the town rather than to the board, and that's a political issue between the town and the Board of Ed. But it was originally designed to help cap costs in current fiscal year. I don't know whether I've answered your question, Jay, but that's what it was designed for.
So one way I think of this is our special education costs have increased over time as the demands have increased over time. So what we seem to be doing is our budget stays fairly constant over the years. So in essence, we're drawing from other areas of our budget to fund these special education costs. So the state provides this excess to offset that. Now, if this excess isn't coming back to the school district, then am I right to say that we're really depleting the other accounts if we continue to do this without funding the other accounts that sort of deplete to support the special education needs? Would that seem to be a fair sort of assumption to make here?
That is definitely a fair perception. If we are increasing our budget X amount and special ed costs go up 5%, then the rest of the smaller portion of the increase in the budget is going for whatever's left.
Jonathan, sorry, Lynn, I had another question very quickly. So,
Go ahead,
Jonathan, I appreciate the fact that you've made some recommendations in trying to meet the town's demands of a 5% increase and then providing us with the excess cost grant for next fiscal year. But my worry with that is that aren't we creating a fiscal cliff if we do this to a degree? Where if we use the ARP and ESSA funds for some of these positions, for example, the psychologist position, some of the teaching assistant positions, then aren't we creating this cliff for us next year where we'd have to go back to the town again to say, look, we need funds to support these. But if this was built into our budget now, then we would just need the maintenance of those. And we know, as you've mentioned, the special needs of our students at this very particular moment are probably the highest we've seen for a long time. And so I would really ask that you discuss these issues with the town to see whether we can fund at least the 144,000 that we saw in that one set of slides that refer to the special education needs, and also some of the upgrades on the technology that were very, very important from a facilities perspective. We heard that earlier from Anthony. I would really urge you to go back to the town to see if we can use some of that excess cost grant and maybe a larger portion of the excess cost grant next year, should we get a large excess cost grant. And I'd also like to understand what the basis is in terms of how much they give us. Is there a particular rule with the town in how much we're allocated in terms of excess cost grant? So I think some of this needs some clarity, and I'd really like you to come back to the board with some of that clarity, if you could.
Sure, I think we'd be happy to do that. I think that the board has a right to ask those questions, and I think you imply something important about ARPS or any grant. We try not to put there things that are going to be long-term. So if you think a social worker is just going to be necessary for next year, then you say, oh, definitely put it in a grant. But if you say, well, our students' social and emotional needs will probably continue more than just 1 year, then we don't necessarily want to put it in a grant. But we do have several options. And the other thing I'll just mention to the board a little bit vaguely is that we do have some recent word today that we may have a favorable settlement in a litigation issue the board has discussed before. And the board has already authorized that if that settlement is to come, that we can request that from the town as well, as it relates directly to other specific costs that we have. So the board will remember some conversation about this from a few months ago, and I've gotten your hopes up on this before, but the check's in the mail. We were actually really told that this time. So that's another thing we have to talk about as well, Jay.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thank you, Jay. Any other questions? Okay, we're going to move on to Policy Committee.
Thank you, Lynn. The policy committee met on March 15th at 7 p.m. We reviewed the 5 policies that you have in board book for review and for public review. Those policies will be on 30-day review. Dr. Budd has diligently looked through our policies, and we've been in consult with CABE to make sure that our policies are up to date. As you can imagine, there are a lot of things happened during COVID, even on the policy level. So we are rapidly bringing those up to date. And our next meeting will be April 5th at 7 p.m.
Thanks, Maria. Any questions about Policy Committee meeting? Thank you. CABE Liaison Report. Maria, Sarah Beth, CABE Liaison Report.
Charlene, I can talk a little bit to that. Board member engagement has been, there was a CABE virtual day on the Hill on March 10th. And CABE has been very receptive to the idea that a lot of us, are not able to attend meetings during the day. So they have put up a virtual recording of this meeting, and it's available for free. All board members received the link, so we can engage on that and keep connected. And we've been engaging with CABE for some policy guidance and some updating. And then our upcoming events, there's a save the date for the CABE CAPS fall meeting, which will be November 18th to 19th. I'm assuming the delegate assembly will be on the 18th and the meeting on the 19th. And then there's some extra opportunities through CABE to engage the district, both some learning opportunities for the district and a chance for us to also talk about the things that we do as a model for other schools as well. So that's all I have tonight for that.
Thanks, Maria. Anything to add, Sarah Beth?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Upcoming meeting presentations. April's Board of Education meeting will include a presentation on summer 2022 at Beecher Road School, inclusive of all Board of Ed sponsored summer programs. Is there anything specific that board members would like to see addressed in that presentation? That would include summer enrichment, summer school, summer learning academy, special education, anything else? Okay, so board members, I don't see any right at the moment, but if you think of something in the next week or so, you can email me, you can email Jonathan, and we'll make sure that those things are included in next month's board presentation. Here's my public service announcement. Please note that due to the scheduled preliminary budget hearing, as I said before, for the town, it is scheduled for the 3rd Monday of April, which is Monday, April 18. Therefore, the April meeting of the Board of Education will be held on Tuesday, April 19 at 7 p.m. Also of note for public information, on Tuesday, April 5th, the board will be very busy with board committee meetings, which will be meeting, Facilities Committee at 7:30 a.m. on that day, Finance at 4:30 p.m. on that day, and Policy will meet at 7 p.m. on that day. So Jonathan has quite a day of meetings. I don't know how it happened, I said to him.
Bring your lava cakes.
We should get cheesecake and lava cake that day. Thank you. At this time, we're moving on to new business on the agenda. I would like to amend the agenda. I move that we add acceptance of certified staff retirement to the agenda. Do I have a second for that motion? Maria? All those in favor of adding that to the agenda? Brooke, yes. David, yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Marcia, that was unanimous vote. Dr. Budd, Do you want to speak to that item on the agenda that's been
Yes,
added?
it's bittersweet for me to bring this to your attention this evening, everybody, but I'm going to ask that you support a motion this evening to accept the retirement of Michelle Waldron from the Woodbridge School District effective July 1st, 2022, with regret. I need to say that after beginning as a long-term substitute in November 2003, Michelle has served as a Beecher Road School classroom teacher in grades 3, 4, and 6. And reviewing her personnel records, I will tell you that her supervisors have consistently cited her positive professional attitude, with one writing that, as a quote, positive team player, she has developed a positive rapport with the students in her classroom, and she takes pride in creating an inviting atmosphere for her students, which includes collaboration and conversation, end quote. Last year, Michelle stepped up to serve as the grade 4 remote learning teacher for the year, and in that capacity, she enriched her students in new ways, including through technology, which provided new pedagogical methods she shared willingly with her peers. For nearly 2 decades, Michelle Waldron's warm support for her students and her colleagues has benefited Beecher Road School tremendously, and she will be missed significantly. And the administrative team, Lynn, joins me in saying that Beecher Road School will be a much more deprived place without Michelle Waldron here, but she has earned a well-deserved retirement. And the last thing I would say about her is perhaps the simplest. Michelle epitomizes what we would hope to see in any elementary school teacher for our own children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. So having heard that, I will move that we accept the retirement of Michelle Waldron effective July 1, 2022, with much regret. Do I have a second to that motion? Sarah Beth? Okay, I'm going to call the roll for that so that it's clear. Who voted? Maria?
Yes.
Sarah Beth?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I vote yes. And Michelle, if you're on, I would just like to say, retirement offers many wonderful opportunities. You too could be on a board of education, but we wish you all the best in your endeavors and in your time of retirement. And thank you for all that you've done for the students at Beecher Road School. All right. Next is act on 2022-2023 healthy food certification participation. Dr. Budd?
I hope a person is really ready to make this motion. It must be made exactly as written. Every year, the district, because it participates in the National School Lunch Program, has to make 2 motions. And the first one is what you see presented here. And this motion is to certify that all the food items we sell to students will meet the Connecticut nutrition standards. And the Board of Education has for many years met the Connecticut nutrition standards. Richard and I support Food Director Roddy's recommendation that we continue to do so. So that probably will not be as much time as it will take you to read this motion verbatim so that we can submit the minutes that say that to the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Okay, I'm ready to do that. I move that pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 10-215F, the Woodbridge Board of Education certifies that all food items offered for sale in the schools under its jurisdiction and not exempted from Connecticut nutrition standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education will comply with the Connecticut nutrition standards during the period of July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023. This certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from reimbursable meals at all times and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, culinary programs, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or non-school organizations and groups. Do I have a second to that motion? Jay, thank you. All right, any discussion? Let's hope not. Okay, Maria.
Yes.
Sarah Beth,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Brooke,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
and I vote yes, it's unanimous. Thank you. Dr. Bud, the next one is Act on 2022-2023 food and beverage exemptions. These are the exciting motions of the Board of Education's work.
Well, now that you approved that, you have to approve some exemptions or exceptions to it. And there are some exceptions to the Connecticut nutrition standards for food and beverages, but they're outlined in 3 conditions. We can sell things that are not found in the Connecticut nutrition standards if they relate to an event that is after the school day, which means after 30 minutes after the school day or on the weekend, if we sell them directly at the event, and if we don't sell them through a vending machine or school store. These are not Woodbridge School District specific regulations. They are the regulations. So although we'd be happy to answer questions about them, I have to say we don't have firsthand experience with why these are the particular exceptions. Just support that, like all of your board predecessors for decades, you too move this motion.
Thank you. I'm ready to do that. I move that the Woodbridge Board of Education will allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards and beverages not listed in section 10-221Q of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided that the following conditions are met. 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sale is at the location of the event. And 3, the food and beverage items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, and interscholastic debates are events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. The, quote, regular school day, quote, is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Quote, unquote, location means where the event is being held and must be the same place as the food and beverage sale. Do I have a second to that motion? Aaron. All right, any discussion? Maria.
In support of cotton candy at the Beecher Road School Hoot, I vote yes.
Thank you. Sarah Beth.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Brooke.
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
And I vote yes in support of all those wonderful treats that we shared at the Halloween hoot. That's unanimous, Marcia. Thank you, board. Okay. Moving on to other. Is there any public comment? Please raise your hand in the participants list. I don't see any. Anybody else? Jeff shaking his head, no, thank you. No public comment. Next is executive session. The board will enter into an executive session in accordance with state statute to discuss the evaluation of the superintendent. For the public's information, it is expected that no action will be taken when the board returns to public session following the executive session. Do I have a motion to go into executive session inviting Dr. Jonathan Budd to join the board? Sarah Beth? Do I have a second? Brooke? All those in favor indicate by raising your hand. Sarah Beth, I don't see your hand. Thank you. David, you're all set?
Yep.
Unanimous. Thank you very much. Board members, you got a link from Dr. Budd to go into executive session.